Welcome to the RSP Film Room. I'm Matt Waldman. With me today, Ray Garvin. Ray, welcome. Thank you for joining me on this. This is something that I've looked forward to. I've enjoyed your work. I was wondering, in addition to just, before we even get started, I would just love for you to share with folks where they can find your work, because you do fantastic stuff in terms of breakdowns of players, especially from a Devy standpoint, dynasty standpoint.
Yeah, Matt, thank you. Thank you for having me on. It is truly an honor. I've admired your work for some time now. So to really be on here with you, I mean this sincerely. It is an honor, and I look forward to it. And we couldn't have picked a better young prospect to talk about this evening. But for all of you out there listening, on Twitter at RayGQ, that's QUE. And right now, just doing stuff with Destination Devy, YouTube, podcast, and my patreon.com/all gas. As Matt alluded to, a lot of I just love the college game. I love it. I love it. I got to play a little college football myself. So looking at prospects and trying to identify incoming talent is just what I love to do. So if that's what you're a fan of, and I'm sure that's why you're watching and listening, then come check out check out some of my work. I learned a lot from Matt. I learned a lot from Mr. Waldman here.
Man. Well, I appreciate that. But anybody who has a picture of Sean Taylor in the background is okay by me. That's for sure. And some of my best friends are folks who love safety play. So my buddy Gene Bramall is a big David Fulcher fan. That's how he got into football. So, and but I appreciate the kind words. But listen, Ray does great work. You'll enjoy the podcast he does, the videos he does, has a lot of great energy, a lot of great analysis to it. Fun follow on Twitter. Highly, highly, highly recommend that you get yourself some Ray Garvin on your feed to follow on a regular basis. So without further ado, yeah, Bijan Robinson. I think we both really enjoyed his game. I saw that you had tweeted some things about him after I had watched him a bit, and I thought, yeah, this would be a fun one for us to do. And it's fun because this was a freshman year for him, right? So yeah. So big time high school prospect. You know better than I, because I usually watch these guys like sophomore, junior, senior year. I just happened to catch some of these moments from him and was like, wow, I got to see more. What's his story? What do you know about Bijan Robinson?
Well, coming out of high school, I mean, he was, depending on which recruiting service you look at, he was number one, number two in the class coming out of high school in Arizona. About 6 foot. They've got him listed close to 220 now at the University of Texas. But what was crazy, Matt, when I first really started to take notice is one of my good buddies who played on the '05 University of Texas national championship team. He was telling me, Ray, you need to look at this Bijan guy. And he showed me his in-season stats. And it was like 1,500 yards and like 23 touchdowns. And I was like, okay. And he was like, it's week 5 of the high school season. And I said, excuse me? And he said, yeah, he's averaging 23 yards a carry right now in high school. So took notice, and he goes to Texas and he gets on the field immediately and actually forced out, a player that I'm still fairly confident in. Keontae Ingram, he forced him to transfer to the University of Southern California. So limited carries this season, but I think we're going to see some things on his tape, Matt, that's exciting. But for me, and the way that I sort of evaluate, I tell people all the time, you can learn more from a 4-yard run than you can a 60-yard breakaway run. I like to look at some of the little movements that these players have. So in these clips, it's not just home run highlights. It's some of the things I think he does well. And I think we'll talk about some areas of improvement that he needs to clean up as well this season.
Yeah, I love it. And that's funny because the same thing watching him, I made some clips as well. And I'm sure we'll have plenty of overlap with some of these things, but we'll see what we looked at differently. But I love that point, is that really it's about the decisions they have to make in those, short yardage situations, or situations that only yield short yardage, that can be more telling than the big time plays. But there's certainly big time plays here. Let's watch our first look here against KSU and see what you got here.
Yeah.
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 that
Yeah.
that just shows up all over his tape, right? It's just like
Yeah.
the burst and the second, third effort balance.
Yeah. All of that. You just said it. Starting with the receiving play, nothing special at the beginning. But what I notice is he is pretty natural in the receiving game, working through the screen right here and then put your foot in the ground and go, right?
Yeah. I
Right
love it.
here.
Yep.
Like it right there. Now, you've got your offensive lineman out there, right? You got one tackle out there blocking the safety, so he's got a lane. But I like as we go through the play a little bit right here, just that balance right there, because the corner gets him,
Yeah.
and that's just strength. That's strength. That's contact balance and fighting for extra yards. You love to see that right here from a young back.
Oh, without a doubt. I mean, he gets, and I love the job being able to avoid that, get clipped, keep his feet,
Yep.
and then just accelerate
I
into
mean,
that contact. I just love backs.
well, Matt, he was hit. He was clipped at the 50, and he's tackled at what, the 30. I
Yeah.
mean, right there at the 50.
Yeah. And I mean, it's kind of funny to say that the defensive back hit him in a bad place, but when you hit someone in their power source, literally in their hips, that's bad news.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. And he takes the ball down to the 27. I mean, that's incredible right here. Weaving through the traffic, the balance, the physicality right there, and more balanced. We're just
Yeah.
it speaks. This run really just it's sort of, and I started with this one. It just sort of captures who he is. Like everything in this one run right here. You see speed, you see burst, power. Gosh, it's just fun, right?
For sure. And he tracks the ball well, like you said, with the screen. One thing that I'd like to see with him that we're going to notice probably later on is he leaves his feet a little bit when he catches the ball, which is something we'll want to see him clean up a little bit so that we'll see some examples of some really good pass receiving, I'm sure, as we get into this, but also just some little things that he can clean up. Again, he's just, he's a rising sophomore. What do you expect? And I think that's the thing with when we watch players is understanding that we're projecting forward and that there's things that these are still guys who are learning as they go.
And what I like about the reception is when he catches the ball, he's not drifting towards the sideline. He gets it, whips his head around.
Yes.
Right there, and then gets upfield. You love to see no wasted motion right there, right upfield.
Yeah.
Because that could have been really easy for a running back to catch this ball, continue to drift towards the sideline, and run right into contact right there. Yep.
Great point. Or even stop his feet. And you'll see a lot of guys who are great athletes stop their feet, assess the situation, and think that they're going to be able to outrun people rather than just attack downhill immediately.
Yep.
I'm sure when you played in college, you probably enjoyed receivers who stopped their feet after they caught the ball.
Oh, man. That's fun right there. That's easy.
Yeah. Yeah.
And great hustle here by 93 to get downfield because one for 93, number 3 didn't look like he wanted any part of what was coming.
Yeah.
Just powering through, folks. It's just, and we're looking at a 19-year-old right here, a 19-year-old doing this.
Yeah. Yeah, and 3's like that guy who's supposed to help you move, and he's like, "You got that box, right? Yeah, you got that. Okay, we're good. All right."
And a little point to the end of that right there. Watch him cover up the ball right as he's being taken down to the ground. Watch him covering up right here for contact. You just little things, right? The little things right there.
Yeah.
Right.
And that matters so much. I mean, that's why when we talk like, all the way through here, even just he does a really good job of selling that.
Yes.
He's in a perfect position, really, like, to be able to take advantage of his blockers. Yeah, and even when he gets clipped here, the ball doesn't go too far from his body, which is tough because, I mean, it's kind of far right there, but he brings it back in pretty quickly.
Yep.
Nice.
Just protecting the ball security, important. Love it.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. I mean, yeah.
Just that one cut
Right
right there, right?
there it is.
Yeah.
There it is.
And the acceleration. I mean, when you can get downhill from someone penetrating out that edge, and you're heading to that edge, you see it, and you're able to just open your hips like that.
Yeah. Yeah. And if you notice at this play, it was not designed to hit there. The offensive guard is down blocking the defensive lineman into where Bijan creases through. This is not where the play was designed to go, but just the instinctual awareness to put your foot in the ground and not waste time and go. This is, I mean, if it looks like that defender that 78 is blocking, if he just reached his arms out, he would have, had an opportunity to grab him, but I don't even think he saw it. I
Yeah,
don't even think he saw Robinson
I agree.
right there.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And this is nice because one of the things that I think he could work on is becoming a better zone runner. I think he's a heck of a gap runner right now. But for him to have like that hopeful long career as a running back in the NFL, he's going to have to become a very good gap runner, and it's early enough for him to do that. And there's flashes of things where you can see that he reads the field well, and this is absolutely one of them, because when you're taking the exchange and you get that kind of penetration, you got to be efficient, and this is very efficient work right there. Those 2 steps, and he's downhill.
Yeah.
Love that.
And we'll get a better angle right here to see sort of what happened. I mean, it's immediate penetration by the defender right there. I mean, he doesn't even have the ball in his hands, and 99 is waiting for him.
And he already knows, and his feet react so smoothly. So, and when your feet can be that quick and that efficient, that just tells you that you're seeing the field exactly the way you need to, and you've. Yeah, and whether it's instinct or whether he's worked on his feet enough to be able to make this change at the speed of instinct, it's refined. And that's a nice little crease he squeezes through here.
Oh, my goodness, yes.
Right there.
Yeah. I mean, the acceleration is just, you just see it. It just jumps, right? As soon as he sees that gap,
yeah.
boom.
Yeah. And I love, to me, I mean, that acceleration is it. I mean, you always are going to love when they have the long speed to carry that 40 yards and greater. But if you can be that fast in the first 5 to 15 yards, I'm happy.
Yeah. 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 So here's one where I think it looks like he's going to have a big play, right? It looks like it, but we're going to see what happens. And I think it's one of those things where just kind of he's not able to turn it and get it upfield. Right now he needs to be putting his foot in the ground. And he does it a little too late and runs into the lineman and the defender right here.
Yeah.
Because this was set up for him.
Absolutely. This is a play that this is what I'm starting to quickly call a what would Frank Gore do play, because you'll even see him last year where this is exactly it, where he would make this opening of the hips right here, get outside, but within that next step, that inside step, like you said, he'd get that toe pointed downhill so he didn't careen his way into that front side defender.
So what I ask you, and why I put this in here, because when you run at full speed, I mean, he's going 100 miles an hour. Is this pace? Does he need to be a little more patient here, or is this just one of those runs where he just missed it? It seems like he was just. What are your thoughts on this one?
Yeah, that's a great question. I think it's one of those that if he understood what was going to happen here with the way that he made this move, if he had this paired as a combination, it's like someone who has like a really great left hook, but hasn't learned how to pair it in a combination yet. So it's like he's got this great opening hip move, but he hasn't paired it with the next instep to get downhill. And the better he gets at that next step, the sharper and faster he's going to be able to do it. And I think that's really what it was, is that he's thinking one move at a time as opposed to thinking in combinations.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, you know, as much as I love him, these are areas of improvement. Young back, because I mean, he looks out of control on this play, and you're right. He's thinking one step, and if he knew what the offensive tackle, I mean, he turned him out.
Yeah.
There's the hole. I mean, it's a big gain right there if he's thinking a step or two ahead. But instead, you know, he picks up 4 yards when it could have been a lot longer.
Yeah. But listen, I mean, it's still great for a young guy. And this is again where when we're talking about freshman tape, there are a lot of seniors who, when they would see this penetration, would, instead of taking the stride he did and then opening his hip like that by pointing that toe and getting outside, they wouldn't even know how to do that. They would jump cut towards the line and then try to make a lateral cut off of that jump outside and wind up getting wrapped up by the guy who penetrated. I mean, Kenyon Drake, it took him 3 years to figure that out at Miami, or 2 years at Miami to figure that out when he was a pro. I mean, you know, Anthony McFarland's still trying to figure that out right now a little bit.
Good point.
You know, so the fact he's already doing this, I think it's going to be okay, because he'll probably learn how to add that next instep to really just drive. And he just leaned a little bit too far off. I think it's the lean here that's the problem, is that, like, where would we put it? This is good, but then he right there, how far he leans, he's got to be at a point where I understand where he's dipping, but that next step just isn't enough. He would have to take a longer step and really plant that foot where the toe points downhill, and that's hard. But,
and you know, when you're watching this, when we're stopping it and slowing it down, it seems like it's so easy. Just put your foot. This is happening in a split second's time, you know? So, but your point is very valid, Matt. And I think people need to understand, even though we know where the hole is going to go, you have to be thinking 2 steps ahead, you know? And with time, I think he will learn that, like, you know, my tackle is turning this defender out. All I need to do is cut, plant my foot, and there's going to be a hole right there. And I think he'll learn that as time goes on. I mean, he's a freshman running back.
Exactly. And here's the thing. Like, this is the difference between him and Frank Gore or Nick Chubb nowadays, or other Ezekiel Elliott. You'll see what he'll be able to read in a couple of years if he continues working at his craft is this linebacker. He's going to be able to see this type of a look and go, the linebacker is going to fill a gap, trying to fill this gap to the inside, and he's going to come downhill here. And he's going to see, and he's going to know that this is what's about to happen, which means he's like, I'm going to have a very open, you know, hole here. I just need to anticipate that. And this is how I've got to work it. This is how I have to approach it. And I think right now it's more like, okay, I see the penetration now, but I didn't really anticipate the penetration.
Yeah.
And if he did, he's like, okay, you know, he'll look at this down the line, and for our viewers again, he'll see this backer here and go, oh, he's going to shoot inside or stunt, you know, shoot this gap inside, and all I have to do is open my hips outside and then open my hips one more time to get downhill, and I'm through this and I'm facing the safety.
Yep.
Yeah. So, yeah, I'm with you. I mean, this very exciting back, and just because we're pointing out things that he needs to work on, I mean, like you said, just a freshman.
Yeah. Well, we'll see it from the reverse angle, but you get a real good glimpse if you bring it back one time. Just watch this subtle movement after the handoff, and we'll see it. It's right. Same type of deal. Foot in the ground. You see it right there. Gosh, his balance and his center of gravity to be that big is just incredible, and we'll see it from the reverse angle.
Yeah.
But he made something out of nothing on this run right here.
Yeah,
and it's really impressive.
He got low too. I mean, just like you said, that center of gravity. Yeah. He can scoot
right there.
Yeah.
I mean, most running backs slam right there, and not him.
No, the, some of the tools he has, you're not going to be able to teach. You've got to have, some of these physical tools to be able to execute like this.
Oh, gosh. And again, the ball security. Watch him cover. I mean, he's two hands on the ball. A lot of times, even when I think about me trying to run with the ball like this with two hands on it, full speed is very difficult.
Yeah.
You normally run a little slower. He's not losing speed protecting the ball. Two hands on the ball, just foot in the ground, vision. It's not a highlight run. This will never show up on Bijan Robinson's highlight tape. This run will never show up on it, but there are little things in this run that are just, it shows you the physical tools are there.
Yeah, it'll show up on a lot of scout tape.
Yeah.
And when they put it together and say, is this a guy who can get some of the hard yards? Is he someone that can move laterally for us and stay downhill after he does so? I mean, this is a good example. This is a good example of, maybe he didn't do this as well on the last play. It was a different type of play, but what you're still seeing a range of things that he does well, and what he does well and what he could get better at. But it's like, yeah, that ability to slide outside that fast.
And I know it looked like 34 was blocked on that play, but he wasn't. I mean, Bijan made him miss. 34 filled the gap. I mean, he's right there. Look at that.
Yeah.
He probably thought he had a tackle.
Yeah.
And just right there, gone.
And we're talking, that's the difference between basically no gain and 5 yards right there.
Correct.
All right, so let's see what we got here.
Yeah, what do we have? What did I put on here? So I'm watching this play, and I'm trying to say, okay, he's being patient. He's letting everything set up, but I don't know if he really did. I think he saw the hole instinctually, hit it and go. Just looks a little funny in these zone blocking schemes when I watch him run. I don't know if it's a comfort thing. And you were talking about he's, great gap runner, got to improve in that. This one I'm having a hard time figuring out. Was this a great run by Bijan, patience, vision, or was he a little impatient, not stretching it out? But it's hard to argue. He picked up 15 yards on the play.
Right. And I think that, let's look at the logic of this. We got 35 who's unblocked right here. And so I think he notices that pretty well when you've got, 3 of your own blockers taking on, you got 2 on 1, and then you've got your outside player right here taking on the defensive back. I think he knows that's fairly stretched out. So he probably saw, if I'm going to say it's in Bijan's favor, it's because the defensive back had the strung out and had the outside. So on that end, the decision to go back inside, I think you and I both are like, yeah, that's a good decision, but could he have pressed it even more? And, maybe the answer is maybe he could have pressed it a little bit more here and maybe got this flowing a little bit more to the outside, and he could have maybe, found this lane, but at the same time, it doesn't look like 56 was really even going anywhere.
Yeah.
So I like it. I know where you're coming from, and I think we're going to see some more runs where we have more definitive look and say, yeah.
But what I do love is when he made the decision to go. I mean, he's straight up. He's running right at us. He's running right at us, right in front, right to the screen.
Yeah.
Decision to go. No wasted movement. Let's go.
Yeah. If you make the decision, live with the decision, and he does that.
And again, hard to argue with 14 yards on the play.
No, exactly. Oh, yeah, I've got this one too.
Yeah. You got to make somebody miss in the open field, and that's as simple as – and here's my thing with watching him. His lateral agility, it doesn't look like LaShawn McCoy. It doesn't look like Clyde. It's different, right? He's not – he's got great feet, but they're not people, running backs can win with lateral quickness in different ways. And Bijan, what I noticed, well, even look at his core, look at his body lean, his center of gravity. He's always low. He's thickly built. And that little hesitation right there, I mean, that's the difference between, being stopped behind the sticks
Yeah.
and picking up close to the first down.
And he plays within his frame, which I like a lot because as impressive as McCoy and Charles and a lot of those guys are, they get away with being able to get their legs and feet well outside their shoulders and still maintain their balance. But that's a tough thing to do. And the fact that he can kind of play within his frame and that burst, I mean, that short area, it's really the short area quickness right here. Just like that lateral move you talked about in the hole on that counter play. You see the same thing here is that he's just, when you have that kind of quickness and you can start like that a little bit or just plant inside, dip and go, it's nice work. And once again, yeah, that's my favorite thing about him, like you mentioned, is just right here. It's just like, okay, one step. It's like basically one step to transition. That's very difficult to do. A lot of backs, when they're going east-west and transition north-south, I mean, most college backs I see, it takes 3 to 4 steps to go from, sideline to downhill. And he does it. He doesn't even need a step. He just starts downhill right there.
Boom, right there. Oh my gosh. And you see the power in his legs. Like you see it. As soon as he plants, it jumps off the screen.
Yeah.
Boom. And he's at the 40-yard line.
Yeah. Yeah. That's like, I know it, for a lot of people who aren't like historian types of the game, and, I think I was joking around with you on Twitter about something that you tweeted about, like guys who were like, college players. And I said, and I'm like noting guys from like 20 years earlier. And then somebody was like, oh yeah, what about these guys from like 20 years before you, but, I used to watch a lot of Jim Brown tape just because I grew up in Cleveland for a little while, and everyone just revered Jim Brown, and for good reason. But this looks like that kind of thing Jim Brown did, is that when he planted and got downhill, now, of course, it was black and white, and it was like, guys who played center were like my size, and he was bigger than them. But still, just the way that he could get downhill like that, you see the top runners, it's always like that explosion.
And then the power to power through those arm. You're not getting them down with arm tackles. If you're a safety, you're not going to tackle them like that. I mean, you got to bring your lunch pail. That's not going to cut it.
I mean, look at this backside defender here. He has no shot.
None.
Yeah.
None.
He couldn't even. I mean, like, he's already angling towards there, and it was like, man, the angle I did to adjust to come down the line wasn't even good enough.
Matt, that's exactly what happened. I mean, okay, I'll take an angle, and meet him. Oh, crap.
Yeah. He's just running after the bus at this point. He knows he's going to be late for school. Wow.
Oh, we'll like this. Here we go.
Yeah. Yeah.
And this is from the spring game. So a couple of weeks ago.
Oh, nice. So
just,
yeah.
Right here.
Oh, nice little balanced touch, too, after he cuts outside and slips a bit.
Right there.
Yeah. That's still very impressive, because especially when you got to cut off that left foot.
I don't think people understand how incredibly difficult that is.
Yeah.
To make that sharp cut off your left foot.
I love that you got spring game footage. That's awesome.
Yeah, just to see where he's at. We were watching the 2020 tape. Let's see Mr. Robinson here in 2021 with season of confidence under his belt, and we'll get a couple of angles from the opposite end zone right after this one that really kind of show just the lean and the body control right here on this run. Just incredible. It's just power.
Yeah.
Balance, power. Fun player.
Yeah,
Fun
without a
player.
doubt. Without a
Fun
doubt.
player.
Let's watch a little more. Let's see what we got here.
Yeah,
All right.
let's do it.
All right. So we got. All right. This was one of those plays where I watch this and I think, all right, I want to see him press a little bit deeper.
Mm-hmm.
And it's not necessarily that he's going to get anything out of it. Yes, maybe he can get a cutback here out of this and get around 23 by pressing a little bit deeper, a little shorter strides, and maybe being able to bounce through there. But that's debatable as we go through this. I just want to see him get a little closer to see if he can get someone to over pursue, and then he can make a move off of that.
Yeah, he didn't give it. He didn't give it a chance. Mesh point was right at the 20, and I mean, at the 19, he's already making that cut. You know, right there.
Yeah. So I mean,
But that's the growth area, though, right? You know, as great as these players are as talents, there's opportunity there, and I think Bijan in the film room on Sunday, the coaches went through that with him.
Exactly. And it's just one of those things that you got to know that, you know, if he played a lot of gap in his career, gap and zone are opposite in terms of how you approach it. So, if, you know, it's going to take a little bit of time for him. This was an example of him leaving his feet, I think, and where he just has these little hops occasionally where what ends up happening is because his feet aren't on the ground, then he's got to make a move. And then he's a little off balance, and that inside foot, and it may not have had to do with the hop, but that hop can leave you a little less prepared. But like we saw earlier,
Oh my gosh!
yeah, that same play.
Oh my gosh!
So I don't think I have to. Yeah, we don't have to go that. This was the same play that we saw earlier too. So okay, this play, I think you've seen this play. I think everyone's seen this play with him.
Yeah.
Yeah. That's like that's a yoga position gone wrong.
Yeah, it's scary. I mean, every time running backs leave their feet like that, when I was watching this game live, I was very concerned.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh.
Now, on a weird angle of this, I mean, I'm not going to keep showing it because it'll probably make people squeamish. Getting hit in the back like that, the fact that he was this flexible.
Yes.
You know?
Yes.
And that he could, did he play the rest of this game? I don't know.
Yeah. I'm not sure. I believe he was, because he did miss a couple of games this season. And I would just venture to say that play didn't help at all.
But the tracking here, I mean, again, just over the shoulder.
Yeah.
Feet on the ground.
Yeah. Just natural, right?
Yeah. Oh, contact balance. That's the thing. I think a lot of people underestimate, to me, what's important about contact balance is that if you can stand up a safety, this is a linebacker though, but if you can stand up a safety heading downhill and you can at least stalemate them, then to me, you're at least at the baseline level of a guy who can contribute in the NFL.
Yeah.
If you can do that to a linebacker, you have the baseline material of the contact balance for a starter without a doubt.
And not only did he stalemate him, he pushed him forward 2 yards.
Exactly. And he didn't even have the advantage because he's taking the outside angle. The defender's coming downhill.
Yep. And he still picks up positive yards after contact.
Yeah.
Oh, gosh.
And same thing here. I mean, you just see the flat, the sharp cut downhill, pulling through wraps. Then
don't you just love those runs right there? It's nothing highlight about it, but don't you just love this run? Isn't this just boom right there, contact, push forward? Like, I love that.
Me too. I absolutely, because to me, these are the plays that, in addition to his speed, in addition to that great movement that he has, is that as he continues to learn the game, the fact that he already understands, let me get downhill as fast as I can and explode into contact and win against contact, he's going to get the hard yards for you. This makes defenses play you disciplined. This means that, this helps the play action game. This helps you when you do press and cut back and bounce out. And so to me, even with games like, even if he didn't get 7, 8, 9 yards on this play, if he got 1 or 2, I'd still be praising him for the decision, to get downhill and take the tough work. Oh yeah.
Boy. Oh boy. Oh.
Now I have a comp for him that most people are going to get upset about, and it's a comp for like where he is right now if nothing changes with his game, and I think it will change. But there's a back like him who was in the, high 220s, low 230s, could run really fast in terms of open field speed, had a great spin move, runs for power, would attack people, and could really catch. And he played for the Pittsburgh Steelers for a little while before he finished up his career with the Arizona Cardinals. And people were nuts about him when I first started doing this. It was Rashard Mendenhall.
Mendenhall.
And it's like, I don't think he's going to wind up. I don't think that's going to be the final comparison for him at all. But I think it's like, for me, it's the freshman working comparison of what he does well, what he needs to work on, because they're very similar in terms of speed. They both had long speed. They both have burst. They both were good gap runners, both good receivers, and they were powerful backs. I think that Robinson is already a more versatile back in terms of how he moves than Mendenhall was coming out. But there's some similarities to their takes stylistically.
And here's the thing with comps. I know it's really easy to sit back with revisionist history and say, "Oh, it's terrible. He was terrible."
Yeah.
He wasn't as a prospect, and he had back-to-back 1,100-yard seasons that Rashard Mendenhall, and there's a reason why he was drafted early. We're not saying that that's what Bijan is and that's who he's going to become, but when you're just talking about where they are right now, is running styles, is talent. Listen, Mendenhall was no slouch coming out of Illinois at all.
Exactly. And I think you got the point completely. I mean, that's just kind of where I see it as like, if we were to freeze his development right here and said he's coming out for the draft, that would be the comparison. But I don't think that's going to be the finishing point for him at all. I bet in another year or two, it'll be a different player. But I love here the nice little move outside in to get past number 7. I think if I can show it a little bit better, slowing down, kind of makes that nice little stutter.
Right there.
Yeah.
Ugh. And look where the ball was the whole time.
Yeah.
High and tight. Tiki Barber. High and tight.
Yeah, and that's so rare. That's so rare to see that kind of ball carriage. Such a great point, Ray. And it's like, and then that nice little move here. I mean, that's not, he anticipates that defensive back coming down the hill from the outside right there.
Look at that. Just, God.
Yeah. God, he barely moves that thing from his chest. Very rarely.
I love it. It doesn't move.
Yeah.
That's savvy. An NFL coach is going to say, we don't have to worry about this guy putting the ball on the ground.
No.
Like that's one less thing they have to worry about.
I saw one fumble in all the touches that I watched of 20 minutes worth of like cut-ups earlier today. And it was one of those just perfect defensive plays where the strike and the location of the pull was like any safety would have been proud to have done what they did, Let's see what I missed with this. Was this just, again, you just see it outside penetration, opens the hips, gets downhill. I mean, same stuff we've been talking about here, and then just hits that thing hard.
He loves running through gaps, doesn't he? I mean, he is comfortable running inside.
Yeah. This is an example of a play where you see where the stutter there, he has a little bit of the stutter. You maybe want to see him cut the stride a little bit earlier and maybe not take as wide of a step. But the more I look at this, the more I'm just thinking he did what he needed to do on this play. There was just nothing there, and he took it.
Yeah.
He took what he could.
Yeah. But again, what I appreciate is when he made the decision, and I'm just going to slam it up the back of my lineman. I mean, he just went for it, right? He didn't play around. Let's just go straight. Like, that's what I'm going to do. I'm going to put my head down and try to drive forward.
Yeah. I think if anything, I wonder, I watch this and I think maybe this, this defender right outside here, he's hoping that maybe he can get that guy drawn inside a little bit more with this step. And the defender doesn't go for it. He stays disciplined. He knows that this defender's on him, so he can't do anything there. And once he sees that right here, I think he realizes he's not going to be able to bounce it, so he just takes it.
So the alternative to this play, Matt, and if you could freeze it right here, if he bounced this to the left or right, either side, and he's tackled, I mean, he loses 4 or 5 yards, and we're talking about you can't bounce that. You got to put your head down, take what's there. You're not going to break every play. So, while this wasn't, I think it was the smart decision. I think he did recognize I have nothing on the outside because I don't think he did on either side. So take what's there and put your foot down and go.
And look where he is. They're down by 4. It's mid-second quarter. And they're inside their own 20. Why is he going to get them pinned further back on a
Correct.
Now you're going to have a 2nd and long, 3rd and long, and put your quarterback in a tough situation.
Yep.
Yeah.
It would have been a loss. He picks up 1. Now it's 2nd and 9.
Yeah. Much easier on your playbook.
Yep.
Yeah, and again, just a good example of him running a gap play. He's patient with gap plays. He has a good feel for it, but knows when to accelerate.
Now, what do you think about his long speed?
I mean, so far from what I'm seeing, I think it's good, not great. But again, for a back like this, he's one of those guys that you could see in the league, like Terrell Davis, where Terrell Davis had a lot of long runs, but it was because the defense had to stack the box in order to stop him, and if he broke through, he could be gone. And I think Robinson's the same way, whereas that defenses eventually, I mean, look how deep everyone's playing. There's no way he's going to beat some of these guys playing this deep. But the fact of the matter is that when they do stack a box like this and he gets through, forget about it, because it's enough to hold off guys who are at an angle disadvantage. But guys who have an angle advantage and can make up speed on them. But if you're going to get 40, 50-yard games,
whatever. Yeah.
Oh, he didn't get that 175-yard touchdown, that happens to the 4-3 guy, once a year. That really, like, I'll take like 8 runs of 30 to 50 yards in a season to 175-yard game every day.
Agreed. This is just nasty.
Yeah.
I mean, oh, poor number 4.
Yeah.
I wore number 4, Matt. I played corner, so I feel for this poor young man. Safety corner, whatever he is, I just feel for him.
For sure.
Beautiful balance and just.
And look how he presses inside on him to set him up for the spin.
Yes.
That's great.
Yes. Oh gosh.
And
then out of the spin to make that cut right there, right out of that spin.
Yeah.
It's just boom, plant. Oh my. There's your combination. You asked for a combination. There it is.
Exactly.
Spin, plant.
And that's exactly it. I was going to bring the same thing up, is that combination we didn't see earlier. Well, we saw that he can do it. It's just a matter of learning all of them and recognizing when to do it. And he will. I think he will. Whew. And anybody who can do all that and keep the ball glued to his chest, I think he can learn a
Well,
combination or
you don't
two.
even see the ball. You don't even know he's got the
Yeah,
ball because he's not swinging it.
yeah,
You can't even see the football.
yeah.
And I know people listening, they're probably like, "Man, Ray's really harping on that." You know what you really didn't like last season when Ezekiel Elliott kept coughing it up. You weren't
Right.
happy about that. You're not worrying about this kid coughing the ball up.
Yeah. And while this can come and go, we've seen Sony Michel correct his vast fumble problems and Miles Sanders
Mm-hmm.
correct theirs. We've also seen David Wilson get benched for it. We've seen Stevan Ridley basically go from
Yep.
being the lead back of the Patriots to not being able to maintain a job because it got into his head. So, there's two ends of that spectrum that wow,
Yeah.
this little
That,
stab right there too after all of that and the stiff arm. I think we get another angle of this beauty here too.
it's just it's beautiful to watch stuff like that happen.
Yeah. I just had to I think
Set him up.
yeah.
Oh. Oh.
Another back he moves a little bit like for his size is another Texas back, Ricky Williams. I think Ricky was a
Ricky
little more
Williams.
fluid, but
Yeah.
had a little bit more. Ricky had a little berry to him too in some ways that at Texas, but you can see a little bit of that with him. He certainly moves fluidly.
Yeah. Oh.
This is hard. This is hard to do when you get a safety with that angle on you and hits you indirectly, like right on the side of the leg, and you just step through it.
I mean, that's his for a safe former. Oh, did you see him get up? Look
Yeah.
at one get up. Watch
Yeah.
him get up.
Yeah. Oh. Oh.
Oh my.
Oh. Yeah.
Matt.
Yeah. Hopefully
I
he's
don't-
all right, but yeah.
So yes, I don't want to laugh at that, but do you understand how powerful those legs were for the safety to have the momentum, Bijan to be running laterally,
Yeah.
and he looks concussed at this point. I'm
Yeah.
not laughing at him, but
Yeah.
golly, man.
I know what you mean. We're just laughing at the power that he has
Yeah,
to be
that's
able
just-
to work through that.
And most backs fall down right there. That's a tackle. That's number one. Is he gets a helmet sticker for a loss of 2
Yeah.
right there.
Yeah. And now we got a 2-yard gain instead.
And
it took
a safety out of the game.
yeah.
And your safety's out of the game.
Yeah. Oof. Yeah, and then we get 56 taking him on, and he pushes. And now there's some help. I mean, people will say, "Well, look at the guard. The guard or the center has help here." Well, sure, he does, but he's still preventing. He didn't get stopped on that play either.
No.
And his legs
No.
do a lot of that work, and he gets hit twice in the midst of this after he does the pushing, and still doesn't go down right away.
Now, any fear about that? Just your philosophical thoughts on running backs continuing to fight through because he's doing this every play. Any fear long term with this running style and potentially defenders at the legs and whatnot?
I can see with the defenders at the legs thing, but here's my other thing. When you have a good pad level and pad angle like this where you're heading downhill, your legs are behind you. So you're always leading downhill and you're attacking first. So you're getting the first contact and dictating. So as long as you are still leading downhill when you take these hits and you can keep your knees high and push through, yes, there's a chance he could get, rolled up and things like that happen. But I'm good with guys who dictate terms because they're usually the ones that stay healthy and win, and they give more punishment than they take. So guys like that were, Adrian Peterson was that way. Jamal Charles was that way. Even as a small back, you'd see him he'd take on guys like this, but do it in a way where he'd be able to spin off of the hit. It was usually at a different angle than this, but he'd be able to deliver the shoulders, spin off the hit, and he'd be gone for another 30 to 50 yards. And I think that with Robinson, the fact that he's not upright, he's able to, even with this defender getting under him, it's still basically on the pads.
Agreed.
And all it does is stand him up. It doesn't knock him backwards.
I think his balance is just outstanding. Just his running balance, his pad level is it's phenomenal.
Yeah. And those guys get it. Like a Tevin Coleman's a good example of a guy who doesn't do that. His head drops, his eyes don't stay up, and then his back takes him downward when he does this. So when he hits, this, I love me some of this.
Oh.
Yeah. And then watch the forearm after he spins off this guy. So now he delivers the forearm right there.
Yeah. Yeah.
He's the first he's punishing.
And I know he looks, 225. He's 215. That's what they have him listed at. I mean, he's only going to get bigger, and he punishes defenders before they get him. He really does.
Yeah. And you win that way that's why Walter Payton had a long career, is just, if you can be the first to hit and attack, you win the interaction because they have to react to your contact, and now you're already making your second move as they react.
Well, and what's it, the first quarter? I can assure you, if he sets the tone like this early, a la Derrick Henry, come fourth quarter, they're not going to want to deal with that. Like you're ready to get out of there. You're tired of dealing with that. Let me go home.
Yeah. I could watch that play all day.
And he almost picks up 8 yards.
Yeah.
Golly, man.
Yeah. See, those are the hard things to teach. If you don't have learning a zone run is much easier than learning how to deliver your pads early and how to punish someone. If you don't have that when you enter college football, you likely aren't going to get it.
That's correct.
Because that's a mentality,
It's a mentality.
Yeah.
And there goes that speed. I asked the question. I mean, it may not be elite, but he's more than fast enough.
Yeah. Let's see if we can see what it looks like to begin with. If I didn't catch it well enough, maybe we'll get to see it again. But this is where number 6 is. He's on the backside in the box. Oh, that's the last play.
Oh, that's
okay.
Yeah.
That's why. Okay, there we go. So we got too high. And that safety was just outside the opposite hash at this point. Which just
honestly, the safety he didn't want. It's the third quarter now. He didn't want that. He didn't.
Yeah. And while these weren't massive hits that he dealt with here, the fact that he just, again, keeps his balance through reaches and wraps.
It's the balance. There's a lot of trash in there.
Yeah.
We can go through hundreds of clips, Matt, where running backs fall down right there. They just, they get tripped up in the trash. Look at that.
Yeah. Just like the
spring
game.
Ball.
Yeah.
There it is. You don't even see. Man.
Yep.
And that you can't teach.
No, it's a technique, but it's a technique they teach and hope that you have the balance to do it. But
correct.
Correct. Again, nice job catching the ball with his hands. Nice little stop, start, move.
That was a good job of, focusing on the ball, but then quickly identifying the defender right here, and then making a quick, right now he's setting them up in his mind. 1-2, in, out, hesitation. There we go. That happened so fast. Right here, look at his head.
Yeah.
Secure the pass, get your head upfield. Mm. I was at this game.
Oh, were
Just want
you?
to throw that out there. I just want to throw that out there.
Nice.
I was at this game. Yeah. Yeah. It's down in San Antonio. I was here.
Look at that extension. That's beautiful. And look how he keeps his head and eyes up so that he can balance
Oh,
touch through that. That's just that's what you want to see is guys, again, when you're going through contact, if you can keep your head up like that, keeps your back flat, you can fully
yeah.
extend.
Full extension here. The hand on the ground and keeping your head up is why he knew where the pylon was. He knew where he had to extend to, and he kept his body up.
Yeah.
Oh boy.
Yeah. It's just too much fun there. Let's see what we got here.
Mm.
Yeah, this one I loved because he runs through the wrap of the defensive tackle.
I'm just gonna sit back and let you do. I'm watching this.
All
This
right.
is
Yeah, this is fun because you get he reads the defender coming downhill, the linebacker here, makes that nice little dip inside, but doesn't get too. He's patient with this actually because he kind of. Let's see if we can show it here. He starts to head outside, sees a linebacker, a little hesitation back inside, pulls through the backside wrap, and then just accelerates as he finds that opening. I think we get a backside view of this too. Yeah, so he reads that very well.
I mean, the defensive tackle thought he had him. Watch the defensive tackle just pound the ground
Yeah,
because he did his job. He fought through that block. I mean,
yeah,
you can't ask him to do any. That's Robinson. That's
yeah,
not the defender. That's
yeah.
Bijan.
Yep, there was the fist pound.
Ah, and I
Yeah,
know a lot of people will see that and think, you should have scored. If it was, you know how many Chris Johnsons have played in the NFL? Probably one. Just one Chris Johnson. That's
yeah,
it.
yeah.
You don't get that type of speed. He ripped off a 60-yard run. I'm happy.
Exactly. And it's like the big thing is that there are a lot of backs that I would even argue who maybe just didn't have the quality of offensive line that Chris Johnson had early in his career that might have been able to have better careers than they did. Maybe not Chris Johnson like 2,000-yard seasons, but could have had strong years. I mean, I look at a guy like Cedric Benson, who was a fine back at Texas, who maybe if he were with a different team, with a better offensive line around him at some points in his career, we might have been talking about him in a little bit more of a different light as opposed to being just a guy who had a couple of good seasons, for the Cincinnati Bengals, who could carry a load himself, but it's just the fact that this is someone that we can talk about in terms of NFL skills, pad level, ball security, footwork, some of the footwork that he shows, the burst, the strength, the ball tracking, so he's got to learn more about zone running some. He can stop hopping with some of the stop taking small little 3-inch hops on some
He could stop fighting
routes.
for extra yards, Ray. Stop fighting for extra yards. Yeah. That's what we're over here picking at his game about.
Yeah. Yeah. Right now, if someone were to say, is he ready for the NFL? I think the answer would be I would guess he'd be an early round draft pick, second, I bet he'd still be a second round pick or even at worst a third round pick. And only because teams would say, well, yeah, he doesn't seem to run zone as well as he could. He seems to be more of a gap guy, but we think he can learn to be a zone guy.
Yeah.
I mean, Miles Sanders had to learn, and he learned during the season well enough. I mean, I think, from that standpoint, if that's what we're looking at here, yeah, maybe he's not a first round pick right now, but he might be if he keeps at this level, even for a running back.
Well, well, the scary part is he has no choice but to play for 2 more seasons.
Yeah.
That's
Yeah.
that's the scary part. He has no choice but to come back at least 2 more seasons before he's eligible for the draft. So I'm confident by the time you and I are looking at him in 2023, what's going to be fun to do is look back on this and just to see, wow, he has, because Najee Harris improved like that for me from this past season to last year. I mean, he looked like a completely different runner. So Bijan, I think that the sky's the absolute limit for this kid.
For sure. I know this. I mean, I only play in one Devy league, so I'm not the Devy expert you are. I did win my Devy league though, so I'll say I did get to win it. But I'll say this: if I had a shot at Bijan Robinson in this draft, he would be my first choice. And I'm a big fan of guys like David Bell and Brees, who's a wide receiver, and Brees Hall, who's a fun back at Iowa State. But Bijan would be very highly up there, if not at the top of my list. That's for sure.
Well, let me just tell you this, Matt. If you didn't have the number one pick, you wouldn't get him because he's consensus right now. The top pick in Devy drafts, and it's pretty much unequivocally Bijan Robinson. So without the first pick, you wouldn't get him.
So yep. So the answer is duh. From my that was Ray being nice to me and not saying duh. Of course he is.
No.
But,
no. The good thing is there are a couple of other guys I can't wait for you to look at from this 2023 group of running backs who are, and I've said it, Bijan is my top guy, but the next two guys are right there on his heels. And I think there can be cases made that they've got that type of skill set as well.
Nice. Well, who can you give us a little lowdown who they are?
Tank Bigsby from Auburn, 5-star kid as well, and Jahmyr Gibbs from Georgia Tech, who's a little bit different than the both of them. But I think knowing you, I think you'll like what Gibbs brings to the table a lot. But it's those three running backs who I think are very, very special type talents.
Nice. Well, I'm definitely gonna have to look at Bigsby. I think I saw something on your TL about him recently, and so since I'm not far from there, I'll have to check him out. And
he's fun.
And Gibbs and Bigsby, I'll have to for sure. And then you'll have to tell me what you think of this kid Melton out of the University of Georgia. We'll have to see whether he gives us any Eddie George Jr. vibes down the line.
Okay.
So but yeah, this was great. Obviously, Ray, we'll have to do this again, and watch some more players and do this. This will be a lot of fun. But you can find Ray at Ray GQ, if I can talk, and you can find him there on Twitter, and find him at Destination Devy and all the great work that he does with the podcast, with the site, and with his video analysis breakdown on YouTube. So I would definitely recommend following him on YouTube and learning more of the work that he does there. And where I'm at, so you guys can find me, where I'm at YouTube and on my site. And thanks again for listening, and we hope you guys have a great week.